We checked out before we checked in. I know how that sounds. I wrote it down because my hands shook and I didn't trust my memory even then. We walked in the lobby and the last line in the guest book already had our names. Faint, like someone pressed hard with a dry pen. Under it, in a neat column, it said, "Checked out." I should have left then. I didn't. I wanted proof. My brother wanted a good night's sleep on a soft bed and the story in the morning. We joked about the rate and the fact that the front desk had no one standing there. The bell was a dull little thing. Danny tapped it and said, "Hey! Service." It was a roadside inn off 41. Old building, low roof, faded sign. We picked it because drivers said they saw a woman in the hall and heard knocks that woke them like a trick. I told him to get the recorder set up. He said, "After coffee," and made a face when the lounge only had a glass pot with burned mud. We carried our bags in. 2 little cases, the camera in mine, the mic in his. I didn't need all of it. We were supposed to do a sweep, sleep over, listen in the morning. The lobby smelled wrong right away. Not rot, not mold. Sweet and off, like old flowers left in water too long. It made my tongue feel coated. Danny sniffed and said, "Grandma's purse," and laughed at himself, and then rubbed his nose like he wanted to wipe the smell off. Behind the reception desk, there was a big ledger, the kind with green cloth on the spine and fat paper. The pen next to it was tied to a chain. Above it, on the wall, there was a framed photo. Black and white. A woman in a dress with sleeves to her wrists. Hair pulled back. Not pretty, not ugly. Set jaw. I remember the buttons down the front of her dress and the little brooch at her throat. The date on the frame said 1937. "Low nightly rate," Danny said. "No clerk. Perfect." He leaned over the counter. "Hello?" Nobody answered. The only sounds were the highway a little way off and a fridge humming somewhere in back. The ledger lay open at that day's date. Names, many of them old-looking. Some with a perfect line drawn through, not scribbled, just one line. At the end was the faint press of our names. My last name spelled right, which I don't get much. "Do you see that?" I asked. "Someone wrote us down," he said. "Maybe your fan club called ahead." He said that, even though he had driven. I touched the page. I didn't feel a ridge. It just looked like the paper remembered pressure. The key rack on the wall was all brass hooks with heavy brass keys. Room numbers stamped on tags shaped like leaves. The metal was dull with skin oil from 100 hands. I told Danny to take room 12 because it was at the end of the hall and had that fire door we could prop in case we needed a quick out. He said, "That's the smallest one. You snore." He grabbed the tag marked 12. The brass was cold. He juggled it and made a face. "Freezer in here," he said. It was warm outside. In the lobby my breath didn't fog, but the air felt wrong like it had weight. He didn't sign the ledger. He said, "You do your thing," and walked toward the hall. I pulled the chain pen. It scratched. I wrote our names on the open line anyway, over the faint prints. Mine first, then his. The pen stuttered for a second over his last name, like the nib snagged. I had a thought, quick and mean. "Don't," then I finished it. I'm writing it because I had it. It mattered later. When I set the pen back, I heard metal clack. I looked at the key rack. A key turned on its hook and faced me like a dial. It moved again, slow, and pointed to the hall. I told myself it was my eyes. I told myself I was winding myself up. Then one of the keys made a soft click, as if it turned in a lock. Danny yelled, "What the hell?" And I went. Room 12 was at the end, like I said. We passed a big mirror on the wall on our way. One of those old ones with a bevel and dark edges. My face looked older in it. I saw the lobby behind me in the reflection, small, and the photo above the desk sat in the same spot. I didn't notice anything else then. Our room was simple. Bed, little desk, a closet door that stuck and made a deep wooden sound when you closed it. The air was cooler. The window looked to the lot. I flipped the light. The bulb was yellow and buzzed. Danny stood with his hand on the doorknob, frowning. He had let it go, and it turned on its own, halfway to locking, then back. Slow. He laughed because he does that when he's nervous. "You got magnets in your pocket?" I put my hand on his. The metal was moving under our fingers, steady like someone on the other side was turning. I twisted, and it stopped. When I let go, it turned again toward lock. I took the key out of the tag. I stuck it in. That stopped it. I didn't like how my stomach did a drop. We set the camera on the desk. I put the recorder near the door. He flopped on the bed and said, "Set your salt or whatever." I had a baggie. I did it because it made me feel like I had done something. I ran a line at the door and a line at the window. The crystals hissed a little on the carpet, or maybe that's my memory adding things. The smell in the room was stronger, that same sour floral. It came and went like someone walking past with it on. At 1:15 we did a walkthrough. In the hall, the mirror showed us, and the reception behind, empty. We heard nothing. The fridge hummed. A car went by. The night outside looked flat. We came back. Danny said, "If nothing happens by 3, I'm taking the bed, and you take the floor because your guy on the phone said 3. He meant the caller who told me about the knocks that woke him at 3:03 every time. I don't sleep much on cases. I sat at the desk. I tried to write notes. I kept getting stuck on the ledger and the faint press of our names. I got up and went back to look again. Danny said, "Don't leave me," as a joke, and I said, "Baby." In the lobby, the smell was thick. The ledger lay open. Where I wrote our names, there were now 2 lines above, crossed in that same neat stroke. The ink was black and dry. The last line was ours. Our names sat there in wet-looking ink, though I had left it a half hour. Under them, in that same tiny column, it said "checked in." And under that, in lighter ink, in tiny neat letters I didn't see before, it said "checked out," with an empty space, like someone meant to write time later. I looked up. The photo on the wall looked back with no judgment. It was a clear face. She wore the brooch. Her eyes were dark. The mirror behind the front desk showed me in the lobby in the photo. I turned my head. In the glass, I saw someone else standing behind me in the lobby. I turned for real. No one. In the mirror, she stood closer. Same dress. Same face as the photo. She was holding up a key by its chain. I could read the number. 12. I went cold everywhere. I turned again. The air moved beside me. The sour perfume jumped in my mouth. The mirror showed her move her hand, and the key swung on the chain and turned, turning, as if it already knew the shape of the lock. I backed away. The pen on the chain hit the ledger with a tiny sound like a tap, tap. The page turned by itself. 1, 2 leaves, then folded back. I grabbed the book. I don't know why. I tucked it under my arm and ran back down the hall. I told myself to calm down before I reached the room. I opened the door. It stuck, and then came free. Danny sat up. "You leave me for 30 seconds and my ear feels like freezer burn," he said, rubbing the side of his head. The line of salt at the door was broken in a smooth S shape like fingers traced it. The line at the window was still there. The carpet from the door to the bed was dotted with dark ovals. Wet. They led to the bed, then went away under it. Not many. Bare. Small. I pressed my finger to one. It smeared water. Cold, soaked my skin. The smell coming from under the bed was floral and bad. "Stop," I told him when he moved to look under. "Don't." He said, "What, a raccoon ghost?" "It's fine, man," and got on his knees. He lifted the bedshirt. He froze. His eyes went wide. I didn't look. He lowered the cover fast. "It's wet," he said. "Like someone just got out of a bath." "I don't see," he shook his head. "I don't see her." The clock on the nightstand said 3:02. The second digit clicked. It said 3:03. Knock. 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 3 on the door. Slow. Knuckles. He and I looked at each other. I picked up the recorder. Then I put it down. I picked up the ledger instead and put it on the desk and opened to our line. It still said checked in. I was listening so hard my teeth hurt. The handle on the door turned, then stopped. The key I left in the inside lock twitched, then turned half a teeth and stopped. Someone breathed through the gap. Not me. Not him. Not the building. It was breath. Cold washed my cheek like someone blew on my ear. I swallowed and said, "Who are you?" Because that's what I always say. Nails dragged on the wood of the door. 4 lines, slow, from near the top down. It made a small, dry sound. The key moved again, and the ring it was on ticked the wood. "Bathroom," Danny whispered. "Get in the bathroom." We moved as one. We backed away from the door and went into the little bathroom. He turned the lock. The smell followed us. Sour and sweet and wrong. The bath mat was damp. A drip fell. The light in there was too bright and made the shadows look sharp. We waited. I counted to 60 and lost count. The knocks didn't come again then. The nails dragged again on the other side of the main door. A sound like someone wet shook their arms. Then nothing. We came out. The clock read 3:03. I said, "It's stuck." He pointed. The salt at the door wasn't a line anymore. It lay in 2 tidy piles on either side, as if someone had set it aside. A wet, bare footprint sat where it used to be, smaller than mine. The window had fogged from the inside, a hand shape sinking into it from no one's hand, then fading. The chill didn't leave. I breathed and saw white. "I don't like this," Danny said. He never said that. His voice got small and younger. He rubbed his arms. Red lines showed on his forearm like cat scratches. He looked down and said, "When?" and hissed when he touched one. I said, "Back to the desk. We get a different room. We get the hell out." I grabbed the ledger because I couldn't leave it. He grabbed the camera. We stepped into the hall. The mirror showed us and the lobby and the dark outside past the glass. There was no one behind us in the glass. There was someone behind us in the hall. We heard nothing. We just knew it. The hair on my neck lifted. Cold breath touched the back of my head like someone leaned close. We walked fast. The floor under us felt soft. The lights buzzed. The keys on the rack by the front desk hung straight. The door to the lot had a metal bar. I went there first. I pushed. It didn't budge. The bar didn't even click. I pulled. The brass plate above it moved, the screws making tiny noises. Then a key turned in that lock. No hand. Just the metal turning, smooth. I felt it through the bar like a pulse. "Hey!" Danny slammed his palm on the glass. "Hey!" He looked out. The lot was empty. No passing lights. No bugs on the glass. No sound but the hum in our breathing. Behind us, the ledger on the desk flipped a page by itself with a crisp paper sound. I looked up at the photo. The woman in it wore that same expression. In the large mirror behind the desk, she was not in the frame anymore. I didn't see the lobby like a reflection. I saw another angle. The hall. Our hall. The woman in the dress stood in it, facing us, even though when I turned the hall behind us was empty. She held the key up. On the chain it had a tag. My eyes took too long to make it. 12. I didn't turn back to look. I grabbed the ledger and shoved it into Danny's hands. "Room 4, I said, and reached for the brass tag that said 4. It swung on its hook and hit my knuckles. I reached again. The whole rack of keys trembled like they were shaking off sleep. Then they began to turn, one by one, clicking, some to the left, some to the right, slow and patient. The sound made the back of my teeth itch. "Pick one," he said, voice tight. I grabbed 7. It was ice cold. I went down the hall. He came behind me, breathing fast. We reached 7. I put the key in. It turned halfway, and then something inside turned it back against my hand hard enough to bite. I gasped. I tried again. The metal fought me. Behind the door, nails dragged down wood. Not our nails. It made a higher sound than on our door. The smell came under in a thin line. I pulled the key out. We ran to 5. The same. I felt pressure on the other side of the knob, like a forehead leaning there and someone smiling, and I hated that I had a thought like that because I didn't want to imagine her doing any human thing. I felt breath come through the keyhole. I had a flash of the photo and the brooch and the neat hair. My throat closed. We went back to 12, because fear does that. It drives you back to a place you already know, even if it's bad. He said, "F this," we go outside, and went to the indoor by the stairs and pushed. The bar didn't move. The key inside the lock turned all the way by itself. I watched it. It turned and turned, slow, and stopped with a small click like a tongue. The smell stood in the doorway like a person. We ran back to our room. I locked us in. I shoved the dresser to the door. The wood squealed. The key in the lock turned anyway, under my hand. It turned even though I held it. It was a slow, steady twist, and I had nothing to put against it. I left the key in. I dragged the chair under the knob. I put the wastebasket against the gap. It was nothing. I knew it. I did it anyway. Danny stood with his back to the wall, staring at the closet. The door had swung open and then closed, and then open. We stood and watched it. It swung exactly the same arc each time, like a breath. The sour perfume poured from it. Wet prints led to it and stopped. Wet prints came from it and stopped. They faded as we looked. My head hurt. "Salt," he said, voice small. "You have more." I poured what was left across the door again and across the closet gap. It made me feel 5 years old. The salt lay there for a second, and then a small dent formed in it, like a toe. Then another. It made a path, like something walked through it and dragged it aside. The grains slid. The line broke in a clean cut. It was 3:03. It didn't change. The seconds didn't move. The red numbers just sat and stared. It made me think the whole building had decided that was the only time anyone needed. "Stop watching the clock," Danny said. Then he hissed again and clutched his arm. 4 red lines appeared on his bicep. They welled tiny beads. He looked at me like a child. "Don't leave me." "I'm here," I said, and hated that my voice shook. "I'm here." In the mirror, above the desk, not the one in the hall, our faces looked wrong. Mine was gray. His eyes were too wide. Behind us, in that glass, the woman stood. She held the key, and she held it at her mouth like a secret. Her dress was damp from the hem up. It left a pattern on the floor in the reflection. I didn't turn. I couldn't. I stood and watched her in the glass and said, "We're not yours," and then wished I had said nothing at all. The ledger lay on the bed where I threw it. The pages had swelled from damp on the edges. I opened it. I don't know why. I think because I wanted a rule. The column on the right that said checked in had our names in neat ink. The column under checked out was empty, except the neat faint word that I had seen before, as if someone planned it and forgot to write the time. Then the pen tied to the ledger with chain wasn't in my room, it was on the front desk, but on my bed a page moved anyway, like a breeze, like a hand. The tip of a pen I could not see pressed down on the paper. It left a dot. It began to write the time in little tiny numbers. 3:03. It pressed harder for the threes. Little stabs. Under Danny's name, a line grew from right to left. Slow. It crossed out his last name. It dragged through it with care. It didn't scribble. It made one long line and stopped at the margin. It left a wet gleam that soaked in. I touched his shoulder and said his name. He made a sound that wasn't a word. "Don't," he said, and didn't mean me. He meant her. He bolted for the bathroom again. I followed. He locked the bathroom door. The doorknob to the room turned until the key in it protested and then kept turning anyway. The little screws that held the plate ground and squealed. Nails dragged on the wood again, just below my ear height, as if someone leaned. Knock. 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 I counted the space between them and it was wrong. It was like the clock. It didn't move in the right order. I said, "Please," to the space between the door and the floor, and that is not something I ever say. Cold air blew on my toes. It smelled like old flowers and something sour like rot. I bent down and saw water under the door, a thin line of it. It tucked under and made a bead. It ran along the threshold and broke into the salt and took it sideways. The line opened. It did not soak. It's a small thing to remember. The water moved like it had a place to be. Danny unlocked the bathroom door too fast. "We can't stay in there," he said. His eyes were wet. He never cries. He had a red line under his jaw now. I nodded. The lamp flickered. The closet door sighed. The bed mattress sank like someone sat on it. I think I cracked then. I wanted to break the ledger in half and throw it. Instead, I put it on the desk and opened it again because I could not look. In the mirror above it, the woman in the dress did not move her mouth. She did not blink. The key in her hand turned. The old brass tag with 12 on it rolled against her palm and clicked soft. My name was below Danny's. The neat column under checked out had nothing there next to me yet. The pen that wasn't reached down. It pressed a dot. I slammed the book shut. The chain pen hit the cover where it should not be. The sour perfume got so thick my eyes watered. I tasted it like sugar gone bad. I grabbed the dresser and shoved it harder against the door. Danny put the chair on top of it. The wood under the locks creaked like someone leaned. Then I heard a sound I haven't stopped hearing. The crack of wood when it gives and fibers tear slow. It came from the middle of the door, not where we braced it. In the middle, where nothing touched. Not a break like a kick, a split like something forced itself through. The key turned. The old brass head dragged my skin as it turned all the way over, like a clock hand. It turned with a comb I could not put anything against. It slid out of the lock and dropped to the floor on our side with a light thud. I didn't touch it. It lay there, stamped side up. The numbers on it looked like they were written yesterday. 12. The nails on the other side moved again. Not down now. Up. 4 lines that went up, high, where no hand reaches unless you stand on a chair or something lifts you. They scraped the wood and left pale marks. The smell came hot. That doesn't make sense. Cold air with hot smell. But that's the memory I have. The mirror above the desk showed the woman lift her hands. It showed the key swing. It showed her bring it to the lock. I said, "I'm sorry," to the door. I don't know why, but it came out. I turned to Danny and he looked at me like he wanted me to fix it. I can't write the look right. He's my brother. He trusted me even then. The ledger slid a little on the desk like the table had a tilt. It flipped itself open with a soft thump as the cover fell. The page with our names lay there in the room's bad light. The neat little letters wrote the time next to Danny's name in that same hand I had never seen. The line under my name waited. It was pale like chalk. I picked up the pen from my bag because I wanted to do something. Anything. I don't know what. I had this dumb idea to cross out the words, "check anything." When I touched the page, the hair on my arms lifted and the skin of my fingers went numb. The line began to draw itself over my name. I didn't move. The point didn't touch the paper. The ink came anyway. A thin black stroke that started at the end of my last letter and crawled left, steady. It hurried a little when it got to the K in my last name, like the hand was impatient or knew exactly how much curve to use for the letter. It made a small click sound where ink clotted on a bump in the paper. It's the stupid things you remember. It made that click and I thought of a kid doing homework. I hate that. I hate that it made me think of that. The door groaned. The split in the center widened a hair, then more. The grain cracked in a T. The wood dust shook to the floor. Cold air pushed through and hit my legs. In the gap, something moved. Not a hand, not a face, just dark. The key ring on the floor rolled a little like something poked it from under the door, but nothing could fit under. I wrote this because I have to say it somewhere. We checked out before we checked in. The book had us both gone before we set foot there. I can't explain the faint press of our names before I wrote them. I can't explain the woman in the mirror holding our key. I can explain the smell because I still taste it. My clothes held it when we made it home. That's the last thing I'll say about after. This is about last night. We pushed the dresser as if weight could stop whatever she was. The door looked soft around the split. The old brass key on the floor by my shoe turned once, all by itself. Slow, as if someone tested it. The couch voice in my head said, "Don't pick it up." I didn't. The ledger on the desk had my name all the way crossed now except for the last letter. The pen that wasn't weighted at the final stroke. The ink made a bead and soaked. It left a little tail. If I could have ripped the page out and burned it, I would have. I tried. My fingers slid. They were wet. I think from the air. From the water that came under the door. I couldn't get a purchase. There were 3 more knocks. They weren't on the wood anymore. They were on the dresser, lower. Knock, knock, knock. They made the drawers shiver. The nails dragged, lazy, up and down, as if across a table for a child. I didn't put that there. It came without me. I hate that. All my rules went. All my jokes went. All my pride went. I wrote with my hand shaking, and I write this now the same way. I don't have advice. I don't have a fix. If you see that ledger and your name is in it, leave. Don't touch the keys. Don't turn the mirror to the wall. It doesn't matter. Leave. The ledger's line moved. It dragged the last mark through the last letter of my name and lifted in a neat diagonal. The door swelled. The split opened to a width of a thumb and then two. The wood fibers stretched white. The perfume hit so strong my eyes washed. I tasted copper. The nails on the other side set for a new line. The door is breaking. Yuden. Wait, before you go, don't forget to subscribe. It's the best way to make sure you don't miss the next one. And while you're here, hit like. It keeps the channel going and helps more people find these stories. Go ahead, watch another. You've got time, right? See you in the next one.